Hello, this is Simracing Corner. I have a 3D printed Q1R quick release. So I 3D printed this myself. There is a link in the description to Thingiverse if you want to download this model. You could try it yourself. And yeah, I thought it was an intriguing idea that we could maybe swap out these expensive Q1Rs. At least on the wheel side, you could potentially print two of these and have a base side and the wheel side and use it and just clamp it together using one of these off-the-shelf bicycle seat posts, because that's what the Q1R uses anyway. And potentially just use this as a quick release system. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to be using my base side Q1R and then adding this to it, and it does fit. Just to demonstrate, because the base side and the wheel side is the same design, so it can mate together, except you have that seat post section on the base side. But just to show you, it does fit, and it fits very well. It feels pretty tight, and I have attached this 3D printed one to the base side, not with a wheel on, just to see if it fitted, and it does. It clamps down and it feels quite tight. I did notice there was a tiny bit of lateral play when I attached it, just by using my hand force, and I clamped it down pretty well, but there was no play in that direction, which is important. You don't want it wobbling around, but I think this may be okay. So it does feel very, very tight, so there won't be any rotational wobble either, I don't think, because it did seem to clamp down very nicely. Yeah, and I guess the way to look at this is one of these costs roughly around £65. One of these costs 80p to print. It's a 16-hour print, so it's a long print, but 80p. So effectively 80 of these goes into one of these. And another way to look at it is 3 of these, which would cost you in the region of what, coming up to about £200, right? Not too far from £200, would pay for the cost of a 3D printer. So there's reasons why this actually may be a serious option to look at. So yeah, I'm going to test this out, and we're going to find out whether or not it is any good. So I'm going to attach it to this wheel. That's why I brought this wheel out. So this is the one I'm going to be primarily testing it with. This is my heaviest wheel and also my widest circumference wheel. It's OMP1 I use for rally racing. That's the Q1R, which is currently on there. So we'll swap it out, and I'm going to give it a go and test it over hopefully a prolonged period of time. But first, let's get it installed and take a look. Okay, so we are all attached. You can see I've used some larger washers than I had previously, just to spread the load on the quick release, because it's plastic, of course. I can't use larger washers in this section here though, on those two, because they are close to this part of the plastic. Interestingly, the design has already taken this into account, so it has cut out. You can see those curved areas, so you can get your nuts in there. So that's pretty good, I like that. So that's a well thought out little consideration. Another thing, I've modded this, and in a slight way, I have shaved the ends a little bit. Let me just get the camera to focus. You can just see that I've taken a little bit of material off the end with a file, because on the base side you have bolts which connect it to the steering column, and for that what was happening was it was slightly colliding basically. Basically these bolts were just above this part here, and they're just touching the bottom of the bolts were touching that. So by just shaving that off, it now fully connects, and that's good. This will be the seat post I'll be using, and I've added a large washer on the top. Again, this is it's going to be better for the plastic connection. Just that spread that load and clamp it down better. So yeah, I have attached it, and I have wiggled it around, and it feels pretty good. It feels pretty tightly connected. So yes, there is a little bit of flex if you move it, give it enough force, but it feels generally pretty good. And I might not notice that movement in normal use, and that's the main thing. And we are using a direct drive wheel, so if there's going to be any flex, any kind of wobble, it will I'll know, and it will affect the quality of the force feedback. So now we've done all this, it's time to take it onto the sim rig and test it in some games. I ended up attaching the 3D printed Q1R adapter to my Sparco P310 after realising I needed paddle shifters if I was going to use this over a longer test, and for 3 weeks that's what I've been running exclusively. And the results have been extremely positive. The small adjustments I mentioned earlier, filing a bit of the plastic away to clear the bolts, and adding the penny washer enabled the 3D printed adapter to have a really tight fit. I forgot to mention earlier, the adapter was printed with 100% infill, so it is a solid piece of plastic throughout. In general use between this and using a metal wheel side Q1R adapter, it's indistinguishable. The force feedback felt exactly the same. There is no loss in detail. The wheel remains stiff. Of course, if you push and tug the wheel, there is flex, where the metal adapter does not, but that does require a significant amount of force in directions you do not operate a wheel. So after 3 weeks it held up and did an equally good job as the metal wheel side adapter of the Q1R. So from the testing, my verdict is the 3D printed Q1R is a completely viable alternative. It's cheap to print and gets the job done really well, and that's what you really need to know. If you have a large wheel collection, you can save an awful lot of money here, so certainly it's worth considering. But before we end the video, I do want to show you these pictures, as I did manage to break it, though I wasn't racing at the time. It was a rare fit of sim rage after crashing out. I struck the top of the rim, and it was enough of an impact to fracture the adapter. You can see it's a clean break as it's split between the layers of the print. If I were to print another one of these, I'd print it on its side, changing direction of the layers to increase the strength in the section that snapped. And I'm certain it would not have failed under the same circumstances. And indeed, there are materials other than PLA you can print with to increase the strength of this adapter. So I managed to break it, but it held up perfectly from the powerful forces coming from the direct drive motor, but succumbed to my minor instance of frustration and fist. So there you go. I hope you found this one interesting. Thank you for watching and subscribing. I'll be back in a couple of days with something new. So until then, happy simming and bye bye.